and welcome to Cana and Mike's movie night. It's been a while.
It's a special edition because it's Halloween.
Yes, it is Halloween week here on the ECS network, and so
Woot woot.
today we are checking out Phantom of the Opera. This is the... See, here's what gets me, right? So, for the record, this is the 2004 version of Phantom of the Opera. This is one of the most adapted stories of all time between musicals and the original novel and adaptations of it. But this, hold this, sweetie, this really made me wonder how this happened.
Okay.
So...
because Andrew Lloyd Weber is a control freak. That's how this was nothing compared to that.
Phantom of the Opera 2004, directed by Joel Schumacher. If you are familiar with comic book movies, and I am, he's the guy that pretty much killed the Batman franchise, deader than a doornail the first time. So, this particular movie stars, let's see here.
Emmy Rossum. Gerard Butler. Sorry. I'll stop.
Emmy Rossum is Miss Daae, and Gerard Butler.
Christine.
Yes.
Christine.
And then Gerard Butler is the title character, the Phantom himself.
Dun 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 dun.
Okay, we can stop that now. And Minnie Driver as a complete and utter
Carlotta.
so-and-so, yes, Carlotta. I'm assuming that's Italian for, stuck-up
Carla.
diva. So...
Little Carla.
Why don't you give the basic synopsis of Phantom of the Opera?
Basic synopsis. Okay. We're in an opera in Paris in the late 1800s.
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, costuming is fantastic. But I'm biased. The opera is sold from one owner to another set of proprietors, where they discover that the previous owner has been paying the Phantom of the Opera a salary to make sure he doesn't do bad shit. Anyways, he has this obsession with Christine, and it turns out Christine had a childhood friend that she really thinks is hot still.
The Count.
And he shows up, and so of course there's like this, as with any other good musical, there is a love triangle, because why not? Andrew Lloyd Webber wrote this,
She's just excited we're doing a musical.
I am so excited about doing a musical. It's Halloween, and I can't think of a better one than Phantom of the Opera, unless we did the director's cut of Little Shop of Horrors, which I refuse to ever watch.
I suppose we could have done Sweeney Todd.
Sweeney Todd would have been good. Maybe next Halloween.
Maybe next year, folks.
Unless you really want to do it. But you were kind of focusing on, the idea of the Universal monsters. And this is the closest thing I'm willing to get to it right now.
For those out there who are not familiar with Phantom of the Opera as a whole, Phantom of the Opera is initially a novel in the late 1800s. And if I check this, it will tell me who wrote it. Where's his name? There it is. Gaston Leroux wrote the original novel, which is one of those weird novels that there's just enough truth to it to make you think it could have happened. In fact, the novel itself, if you were to read it, asserts itself as a true story. And there are elements of truth to it, but it's a complete work of fiction. It was adapted into stage plays on numerous occasions, musicals on numerous occasions before Andrew Lloyd Webber, although his version is probably the most famous musical version.
And most well-known.
Yes.
Actually, it's the most well-known probably of just all of the Phantoms of the Opera.
I would say that, and then the original film adaptations that predate his musical. Some of those rank high up there.
But when you ask the general population, Phantom of the Opera was the first thing that they're going to actually say.
I have no clue. You mean that musical dude with the half mask? It was made famous once in the 1920s. It was the very first Universal monster of all time, and the only silent Universal monster movie, starring Lon Chaney Sr. as the Phantom. there's a lot of allusions and references in it to other different spooky stories and whatnot. For instance, when we were watching, I've never seen any adaptation of Phantom of the Opera. Cana explained to me there's a particular scene in the film where the Phantom shows up during a costume party, and you had mentioned he was showing up as the devil, and he has a different type of mask, and he's dressed all in red. And our camera operator is going to be adjusting the camera here momentarily. Thank you, Morgan.
She doesn't like it tonight.
So, but he's not actually supposed to be the devil. It's written into the novel and various other versions. He's actually there as the Red Death from the Edgar Allan Poe story. Hence the blood red costume and the different type of mask.
Yes, but for the general person who does not decide to Google it on...
If you don't do your research, or you're not familiar, or you don't have the novel to tell you any different...
Which we don't own the novel.
Some people could say he was the devil. But it's a really interesting, fun story. I say fun because there's... It really is a movie with no bad guy.
No,
to me,
it's not that there's no bad guy. It's that there is redemption at the end.
So we're going to go through our likes and dislikes here. What did you like about this version of Phantom of the Opera?
I owned this long before I knew you.
Yes.
So,
this one's one of hers.
I purposely bought it because I'm not a fan of Andrew Lloyd Weber. I'm probably going to get stoned by every single musical person out there.
I don't think a lot of them watch our channel.
Well, no, I'm sure there's some out there who will, Cats is okay. Phantom of the Opera is okay. The only musicals that I'm like die hard against is Les Mis. Again, there are probably people out there who might actually see this, that they will see our car and they will egg us. Because I just said, I hate Les Mis. Anyways. We're not even going to go into that right now. But I bought this specifically because my senior year of college, I was doing theater training for doing set design and stage managing. And I got this because one of our operas that we were doing, which was not Phantom of the Opera, it was an actual opera, had a graveyard. And there is a fantastic graveyard scene in this movie. If you really want to see a fantastic layout, this would be one of them. For if you're looking for a good layout for a graveyard. So I got it specifically because I needed it for some inspiration for the class that I was in, but also the costuming is fantastic. I'm a sucker for costuming. So, of course, I think that's fantastic. Mm-hmm. There are certain songs from this musical that I do like. Will I ever perform them? Hell no. Because every musical chick generally performs them because every musical chick at some point falls in love with the Phantom and thinks that they can reform him and they want to be the Christine who actually ends up with the Count. Sorry, spoilers. This is from 2004. If you haven't seen it.
The novel's been around for over 100 years. We're not really spoiling a 100-year-old novel. So
I don't know how many people have actually read Phantom of the Opera.
Or, well, there's that, and there's numerous versions you could have seen. There have been 3 Chinese versions of Phantom of the Opera, including 2 television series, as I have discovered. And I would actually be interested to see one of them, just to see how they treated it. But
you and the Google.
If I like something, I do my research.
Oh, you liked the musical?
I actually did. I enjoyed it. It is visually stunning in all the right ways. It is an absolutely beautiful feature film. The costuming is terrific. The sets are terrific. It feels of the period. So you do have this 1800s, late 1800 type of vibe, or even early 1900s. Um, the the mood is suitably gothic. You get that from the set design and so on. Again, how'd this happen? So, and I say that, well, and I say that in an honest sense of astonishment. I made a remark when we were watching the movie. I don't think it's the same Joel Schumacher. There's nowhere near enough neon.
They didn't have neon in the 1800s.
I say it though because if you watch I was honestly reminded of the Tim Burton Batman movies in some of the set design and architecture choices, because it looks very foreboding and gothic. And I'm like, well, now granted, I think this actually came out after those, so maybe Joel learned.
Yes, they did come.
So
that did come after.
Maybe Joel had gotten past his neon phase, or maybe it's not the same Joel Schumacher. I should check to see how he spelled it. The music was pretty good for the most part. I'm not a huge fan of musicals. I watch them with my wife.
Because I love musicals.
And there are some musicals I have thoroughly enjoyed. I would rate The King and I as one of my favorite films, actually, at this point.
That makes me so happy.
I give a lot of credit to that to Yul Brynner.
Etc.
Etc. Etc.
Don't worry, we will do that one night.
Eventually, we will watch The King and I.
Because it's fun.
So, the story itself, very good. The acting was quite good. And this is a lot of actors that you don't necessarily hear a great deal from, to be honest. Like Emmy
Rossum.
Emmy Rossum, I've only seen in one other movie, ever, and it was a bad one.
You own it.
So, yes, I do own it, but that's because I'm a glutton for punishment. Well, it's Dragon Ball, and I'm a glutton for punishment, but I also... I really like James Marsden, so
it wasn't as bad as everyone made it.
No, and it's got Chow Yun-fat in it, even though they wouldn't let him shave his head.
But
that's a story for another day.
But she's also in the long-running show Shameless now.
Mm-hmm. Gerard Butler, who's the biggest name in the movie, realistically. Minnie Driver, who's been in her share of things. The one that struck me really interesting is Patrick Wilson is effectively our hero. He's the Count. I would have never thought of him in this kind of role based off of the A-Team, where he plays the head of Black Forest Security, and he is a complete and utter jerk. So he really did a tremendous job in this film. All the actors did. Like any adaptation of something, it deviates from its original source material in places, but from the research and whatnot I've done, not egregiously so.
Well, it's hard to do a musical that's meant for the stage on film. It's almost impossible. There's some things that you just can't do because set changes and costuming changes are not going to be the same.
No, but I will say this. I think this movie had some interesting advantages by virtue of the fact that so much of it happens on a stage.
Yes.
I mean, it's set on a stage, so it makes sense for so much of it. The parts that didn't, that specifically weren't, so I think of the graveyard scene and then the cavern scene at the end, sort of the climax of the film. Both of those scenes, though, had a very distinct sense of stage set, being set up as if it were a stage rather than a film set. So it had a theatric, that's the word I'm looking for, a theatric feel to it. Things you didn't like.
Gerard Butler can't sing worth a damn.
Oh boy, can't carry a tune in a bucket.
Well, no, he can carry a tune, but this style musical requires a more operatic voice. And he can't do that.
The annoyance I had with Gerard Butler's musical performance was when the song required... So here's the trick to a musical as I think it is.
This is going to be fun.
No, I think you'll actually agree with me.
Okay.
So much of a musical is delivered in song. The story of the musical is delivered by song, not by dialogue. The music becomes the dialogue, the lyrics themselves. So when the dialogue, in this case the music, would demand a certain tonal shift, where you're supposed to go from being quiet and then become determined and then eventually become angry, and you're
And
supposed to
vengeful.
show the range of a piece of dialogue. It's a different animal when you have to do it through lyric rather than dialogue. You have to have a different type of range. Gerard Butler showed range for dialogue. The problem was he was singing. And so those tonal shifts felt very jerky and very abrupt instead of building to a proper crescendo like you might during a dramatic speech or something. So that was my biggest gripe with Butler in the film musically. Um, the Now Rossum, I'm assuming that was actually her singing.
Yes, she's actually trained classically.
Yeah, well, she did a tremendous job. Minnie Driver,
Who is also trained classically.
if she,
She was purposely doing that because that's what the role requires.
yeah, well, so she could have, her character could have spontaneously combusted, and I wouldn't have been offended.
Yes, but you're supposed to not like Carlotta. She's supposed to be a horrible human being who can't carry a note in a bucket, but she's gotten this far
Right.
because of her. She's a diva.
Yeah, but
Well,
I get that you're not supposed to like a character. I understand not liking the bad guy because they're the bad guy. But there's a difference between I don't like you because I'm not supposed to like you, and I don't like you because you are just bloody annoying. And that's why
But she's supposed to be.
I get that. I really do. Whenever she wasn't singing, I got the character. I enjoyed the character. I thought she did a tremendous job as the bad guy, or one of. And I could have cared. The minute she started singing, I'm like, please, for the love of God, get the hook or hit the fast forward button. Now, I know she's supposed to sound tone deaf and all this other junk and like nails on a chalkboard, but wow.
Well, that's why they show the scene where the cleaning ladies are putting cotton into their ear.
Yes, I hope they passed some out to the audience. So I will get to my point, sort of a final thought on this, and then we'll let the wife have the last word on this one. I really think all things are open to interpretation, especially when you're looking at stories. There's no bad guy in this movie, as far as I'm concerned, which is a testament to the film. There is a protagonist and an antagonist. The antagonist is the Phantom. There's no doubt about that. He is your main antagonist. Your main protagonists, plural, are the Count and Christine. But the Phantom may come closer, in my opinion, to Raoul, Count Raoul. Might come closer to a true villain in certain ways than a lot of characters do, because I think you were able to sympathize with him. You were able to see why he was doing what he was doing. He actually had motivation, and it wasn't an evil motivation. It was something that he wanted, that is a basic thing that every human being does want, which is love and attention and so on, in that way. So, to me, he wasn't, quote, the bad guy. He just did some really bad things. Like I said, maybe that makes him closer to a villain than a lot of movies would actually get. And I make a distinction between a bad guy and a villain. But he does have a wonderful redemption story. Raoul, on the flip side, as a hero, I really enjoyed, because you saw in places that he was conflicted and ready to do some really bad things in order to save his girl. And at the end, not so much. He stayed a good guy. So I like the conflict in the hero, in the protagonist. Christine, there's a little bit of conflict there, because she gets, oh, do I stay? Do I go? What do I do? So I really enjoyed the story overall. It's one of the very few times I don't mind a love triangle in a movie because sometimes I think they take away from it. Here, the love triangle actually steered the conflict and informed all of the characters and their motivations and whatnot. And I actually thought it was really well done. This is probably my second favorite musical.
After The King and I?
Yes, after The King and I.
Where does Peter Pan fall?
Probably either third or fourth.
That's kind of sad. I shouldn't have introduced you to that. Peter Pan would have been higher then.
It depends on which version of Little Shop of Horrors I've been watching that day. If I'm watching the not director's cut, it's third. So if I'm watching the director's cut, then Peter Pan is third. I guess it also depends on which version of Peter Pan.
We're talking Mary Martin because it's the best. Duh. Anyways, so for me, I do like this movie. Do I love it? No. I do have, my biggest thing is, besides Gerard Butler singing, I cannot stand the character of Christine. It has nothing to do with Emmy Rossum's performance. I think she does a fantastic job. But for me, I am not a huge fan of female characters that are brainwashed, because that's the closest thing I can. She's got a version of Stockholm Syndrome with the Phantom.
Yeah, there's a point where you can't really tell if it's that or if she's been drugged.
Or a combination
or
thereof.
Something, yeah.
So, I have a problem with Christine. I always have. Every time I've watched this, I've kind of been like, what the fuck? We've made it
That's
almost...
one.
We've made
22 minutes. That's one. Okay.
Yes! Doing better! Doing better! Don't worry, we'll bring back a TV show. We'll bring back episodes of Cana and Mike's drinking game on an episode sometime soon. But I like this movie. It's a good movie. If you're looking for something to watch that's not 100% light, but definitely not horror film for Halloween, it's definitely a good one to try. It's really not a beginner musical. I will admit. This is not this should not be your first musical you should try if you've never watched a musical. This is intermediate, because if you're not used to very little dialogue, because there is very little dialogue. Like, there might be one or two sentences a scene.
Yeah, as in very, very little actual spoken word.
Everything is going to be in song. This is very, very similar to an actual opera, at least musically. This is not something that you would want to start out with. Though, I will say that I enjoy it. You said you enjoyed it, so
yes,
let's give our ratings.
I suspect I enjoyed it more than you did from the way you're talking.
I've owned this since 2004, and I hate Christine. She is such
Cell phone down. For those of you who've never seen Cana and Mike's movie night before, and I know it's been a while, we work on the cell phone system. Cell phone up is bad because you're doing something on your phone instead of watching the movie. Cell phone down is good. It's a cell phone down. I actually enjoyed the movie. I very much, as far as it being a horror movie, it's
didn't
not.
say it was horror.
If you're looking, well, I know, but you're like, if you
this
not
is an
quite
episode
horror.
Halloween special.
Yes,
this is not horror.
It's not a horror movie if that's what you're looking for.
But they're going to kill people.
Yeah, people die. Spoilers. But Andy's disfigured under the mask. Go figure. But although
great prosthetic work.
I actually would have. I don't think it was.
No, for the other actors that had prosthetic work that you couldn't really recognize because of their prosthetic work.
Oh, yeah.
Fantastic.
But the prosthetic work on the Phantom.
prosthetic work on the Phantom was not that fantastic. No. It was kind of mediocre.
It looked like he ran into a door jam.
He looked swollen, not actually scarred.
Not disfigured. But I enjoyed the film a great deal. I would say that this is a mood setter. If you want a creepy mood for Halloween, then this is good. And the music plays along with that a good bit. So
Agreed.
cell phone down.
Cell phone down for me, even though this is not my favorite musical. This is actually my least favorite musical in my collection.
It's not Peter Pan, so.
There are other movies like...
What's your favorite musical? Well, folks, thank you for joining us this week. Look for Cana and Mike's Movie Night to actually return in 2018. We're going to be coming back. We're actually going to do a season of Cana and Mike's Movie Night, 13 episodes that'll air over 13 weeks. So get ready for Cana and Mike's Movie Night.
We're going to be British!
Yes, so get ready for Cana and Mike's Movie Night Season 2 coming next year. This was our Halloween special. We'll be back at Christmas, kind of like Doctor Who. So maybe it will be Doctor Who. So
you would be the best husband ever!
Well, you know, they're showing it in theaters.
I know, but I think we're working those days.
Yeah, well.
Because the BBC sucks.
But folks, until next time, if you want to help us out here at the ECS Network, all you got to do is jump over to cafepress.com/ECS Network or patreon.com/ECS Network. You can become one of our patrons for just $1 a month. That's all we ask for. If you're over at Cafe Press, grab yourself a nice t-shirt, hat, what have you. All that money goes to help us out here for lights and what have you. None of it lines our pockets. We both have jobs.
Yeah.
So
I have two.
She does. So there is that. If you like the video, give us a thumbs up. What do you think of Phantom of the Opera? Tell us in the comments below. If you didn't like this video, give it a thumbs down. We're fine with that.
Tell us why, though.
Yes.
I'd love to know why.
Tell us why. Any constructive feedback is good feedback.
And if there's a musical you want us to maybe watch on season 2, I'd love to know that.
Yeah, I tell you
Are
what,
there any musical geeks out there? I need you. Help me.
if there's any musicals, if there's a movie you want us to watch, something in particular, hey, tell us in the comments below. We're going to start picking out stuff for season 2 in the not overly distant future.
Like in the next week or so.
Probably. So, do that, folks. And, of course, hit the subscribe button. That helps us out a whole lot, too. When we hit 100 subscribers, I can stop telling people to search for us on YouTube, and I can just say, hey, go to youtube.com/something. So, folks...
Something.
Yes. So, folks...
We're something!
Until next time, I'm Mike.
And I'm Cana.
Thanks for joining us on Cana and Mike's Movie Night and on our special Halloween presentation.
Ooh.